Hi there, this is Rebecca over 60 and babyboomster.com. And today I'm interviewing Dee Dee Forrest. Her name is Daniela, and she is the author of Own Your Own Wellness, giving you the tools to break through your plateaus. And Daniela is a health and wellness coach and fitness trainer, and her book deals with diet fads, diet plans, supplements, and how to have optimal health as you age. And so I'm just going to ask her some questions. And what was really cool was I had just done an interview with Elaine Lelaine, and I went over to the Idea Fit, and did the jumping jacks and everything. And then I heard that you were there too.
It was so much fun. It was a
It
blast.
it was. She's amazing. She really is.
Quite remarkable. I mean, she's so quick and her energy, she's so articulate, first of all. I mean, like, she didn't
Yeah,
even need a microphone, she was just booming energy through that whole arena. It was fabulous.
I know. It blew me away. So tell us in a way that most people can understand what you define as the greatest obstacle to optimal health.
I think the greatest well, there's two things. One, finding consistent motivation to keep going. Like you
Hmm.
set a goal, and then for sure, at some point, you're going to hit a speed bump, and maybe you give up, maybe you take a break from it, whatever. So, finding a way to keep going, finding your why. Like, why is it that I want to achieve this goal? Hopefully, it's not just to look better in your jeans. Hopefully, it's so that maybe you have more time to spend with your family. Maybe that so you have more energy. Maybe so you don't have a diagnosis of diabetes or heart disease. That's a really critical part of your health journey, is consistently updating what are your goals and why do you want to reach them.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you need to do to obtain optimal health and keep it up for life?
You have to make adjustments, and that is where a lot of us just sort of get stuck in this idea, like, oh, I used to be able to do X amount of cardio and lose those couple pounds, or I
Hmm.
just had to eat low fat for a few days and I could lose those extra pounds. You don't just do that harder as you get older. You have to do
Yes.
differently, right? And it happens all the time. I meet with women in particular who are, in their, maybe they're like early mid 50s, and they're just struggling to lose those few pounds that they've gained from menopause, or more than a few pounds. They're barely eating. They're barely eating at all. And they're doing, hours and hours of hikes and swims and all these things, and they're just not seeing results. So instead of doing those things more intensely, we need to shift gears. And
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean, I've experienced that for sure. I'm 70 and it's so difficult to lose weight at this age, but at the same time, I think when you're starving yourself or you're trying to exercise too much, you end up hurting yourself a lot. I mean, it's so much easier to do that.
yeah, and I think one piece of the conversation that I think is lacking right now, and I'm first of all, I'm very excited that menopause and women dealing with menopause symptoms is suddenly in the ethos. It's like everywhere you look,
Hmm.
Instagram and whatever. But what is missing from this conversation is, as our ovaries shut down and stop
Hmm.
doing what they used to do, our adrenal glands have to take over the production of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And so when we have adrenals that have only been used to dealing with mostly our stress hormones our whole lives,
Hmm.
they're supposed to make everything. And we're at a period of time in our lives where we're more stressed out than we've ever been, right? We've got ailing parents, we've got children at home, we've got stressful work life situations. So our poor adrenal glands are just exhausted. And then you go and starve yourself and do too much cardio, which adds additional stress. It is
Hmm.
no wonder we can't shed a pound.
I'm all with that. I know I have a lot of cortisol buildup, going through two guys that died of cancer and, whatever happens. I mean, it's just normal as you grow older. There's things that happen.
Yeah, life happens. And
Yeah.
we have to find a way to nourish ourselves and find some resiliency,
Hmm.
support this path that we're on. But not by punishing ourselves and feeling depleted even further.
Yeah, I kind of like the French way of the way that they go for exercise. I mean, it's like they don't really think about it. They just, they go to
Move.
a walk, they walk to this, to get groceries or whatever, but they don't really like sit there in a gym and, they're not doing a lot of heavy duty stuff.
Yes, although I would say that I think that lifestyle is ideal, right? We want to just move on a daily basis and not be sitting on our bums all day long. But as we get older, actually going to the gym and lifting those weights, putting on muscle tone
Hmm.
helps us find this youthfulness that has been eluding us, and it gets harder and harder to maintain muscle mass as we get older,
Hmm.
not just because we're women, but just with age, period. Putting on some extra muscle, eating more protein than we used to, and keeping that muscle mass helps our bones stay stronger, helps us have more energy, helps us burn more calories so that we can eat more food. It's just this wonderful feed forward cycle.
Right. So talk about figuring out what your why is and how you reach your wellness goals with that and why that's important.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I've always, you have like these ideas, oh, I just really want to get back into those size 4 pants or whatever it
Hmm.
is. Yeah, that's great. But what do you do when you wake up and you feel terrible and you're just not in the mood to eat a salad for lunch? You're not in the mood to go get that run in. Like those days are going to come more often than not. And you have to have this more emotionally charged reason, this why to help move you forward. Like if you're thinking, you know what, I'm really scared that my doctor told me I was pre-diabetic.
Hmm.
I'm really worried that my family is going to have to take care of me. If you write that on a piece of paper and post that where you keep your running shoes or, next to your vitamin drawer, that's going to remind you on those days, oh, that's right. I'm not just doing this for me. I'm
Right.
doing it
Yeah.
for the people that I love, that keeps you going.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to look at it. And it's really practical too. I mean, it's just, it's not like trying to say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 6 months. It's a different kind of
Yeah.
mentality.
I mean, so I have osteoporosis. I was diagnosed with it when I was 28 years old,
Mm.
like severe. And I've spent the last 20 years slowly putting on bone little by little, but I'm still on the cusp of the danger zone at 47.
Hmm.
There are days I don't want to lift heavy. There are days that, like I don't want to eat that high protein diet. I don't, like, but you know what? I don't want my daughter to have to be worried about me breaking bones left and right in 20
Right.
years, you know? So it's important for me that I stay strong and I build more bone. I have to remind myself it's not just about me. It's about how will my family have to take care of me as I get older?
Yeah, that's interesting because I had heard, and probably wrongly, that it was really difficult to add bone once you've lost it. So that's interesting to know.
You are correct. It is difficult, but it can be done. And I
Hmm.
have proven it DEXA scan after DEXA scan. And I will continue to try to do so. Now that said, now that I'm in perimenopause, I am on hormone replacement. I take extra estrogen and testosterone and progesterone,
Mm.
but lifestyle wise, I've made some huge shifts, and I did have a scan about 6 years ago that scared me to death and I had
Oh,
lost it.
wow.
And what had happened is I had just gotten complacent and I wasn't pushing myself the way I needed to be. And I lost bone like that.
Wow.
So I know I can't get too thin. I know I have to eat, a certain amount of calories every day to keep mass on me. I know that I have to lift as heavy as possible using every joint in my body. I need to do impact activities. I got to put that weight vest on every time I walk the dog, so
Hmm.
it was important for me to see that. But and I take the right supplements. I have to constantly be making adjustments. And that's what Own Your Wellness is about what are these small adjustments we can make time and again to keep inching ourselves forward in the right direction instead of backsliding.
Yeah, it's really individual.
Very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's so different for everybody, but I've always kind of had the belief. I mean, I was always really thin when I was younger and then, started gaining weight. And now I'm kind of feeling like I don't know that I want to be too skinny because,
No,
especially with older people, because you can fall, you kind of need a little more padding. And
that's true.
uh, I mean,
Helps
you
with
don't want to be overweight, obviously, but you don't have to worry about like just, looking so bomb in a bikini or anything like that.
exactly. And there's a
Some
certain
people
amount of
do though.
yeah, there's thinness that like I don't even 5 pounds lighter for me. Like I notice, a hollowness in your cheeks. That's not so cute as you get older, like
Yeah,
skin starts to sag a little bit more when you're too thin. And there is a sweet spot. But one mental shift for me has been going from the 80s and 90s ideal of being skinny, right? I mean, that's how I ended up with
mhm.
osteoporosis to begin with.
Oh,
I
okay.
just wanted to be skinny my whole life, And that's what we saw in the magazines, right? That's what we all aspired to be. Well, the problem with that is I just robbed my bones of all the minerals and nutrition that they were supposed to be getting, you know? And now I look in the mirror and I'm excited when I see muscle tone in my shoulders,
Sure,
like,
yeah.
oh, wow, this is great. To me, that's much more attractive. I feel better about myself than just seeing bones.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that look of gauntness because that seems to be happening with a lot of people taking Ozempic that don't necessarily need it. I mean, they're not
Yes.
diabetic, but they're
Yeah,
just
no,
kind of
absolutely.
losing a lot of muscle tone doing that.
Yes. And I actually just the last client I talked to is about to get a prescription from her doctor
Hmm.
for exactly Ozempic or Wegovy. I don't think they've decided yet. She's not the first and won't be the last client of mine who's getting on this prescription. It is what it is.
Hmm.
But I had a very serious conversation with her about how important it is for us to continue with her weight training and to continue to make adjustments to her diet. Because regardless of how you lose the weight, if you lose 20, 30 pounds, a significant portion of that is going to be muscle tone. I don't care what
Right.
other people tell you. That's just the way it goes. Okay. Your body
Yeah.
doesn't lose fat. And the problem with that is, God forbid, you put that weight back on, which I don't know what percentage of people will do it, but it's probably a pretty significant number.
Hmm.
You're not going to put back on muscle. You're going to put back on fat. So, when people are doing this yo-yo up and down, the problem is at the end of that, their muscle tone is so much less than when they started, and their
Yeah.
body composition is worse. So we'd be very, very careful to focus on putting on muscle, maintaining muscle as much as possible.
So you're from the Silicon Valley? Is that,
I've
or
been living
you're,
here for 25 years.
so how has that affected the way that you look at health and wellness? I mean, I'm sure you see a lot of innovations and things like that.
Of course, of course. It affects it in that I have so many clients who are very data driven. So, of course, all the wearables, the Aura rings and the Apple watches and you name it, there's mattresses that track your sleep now and
Yeah.
there's scales that tell you what kind of mood you're in. So, learning to take that information and help people like decide what to do with it you know
Hmm.
in the book I talk in the explore chapter about different testing that you might consider if you're not feeling great, whether it just be tracking your steps or looking at your gut health or your hormone balance. It's all fine and dandy, but like what are you going to do when you get this information? Is it going
Hmm.
to help you make adjustments so that you get to your goal? Are you going to be willing to make the changes you need to make based on those results you know
Yeah, I can see that. I just did a video on a food sensitivity test that somebody had sent me, and it was interesting.
yeah,
I mean,
I bet.
I found I wasn't really that sensitive to a lot of things. I was sort of mildly sensitive to wheat products, so I haven't been eating wheat, and actually, I do feel better. So I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
In
mean,
fact,
not giving up grains and stuff, but just wheat in particular.
sure, sure. And, anytime I'm ordering testing for clients, I always sit down and just have a little conversation like, okay, so here's the thing. Here's the possibilities of things that might come back from this test. And I just want you to
Hmm.
know this is what the next several months are going to look like once we get those results. Now, that said, I don't ever just treat results, right? We're going to work on how do those results correlate with how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's illuminating. And I do testing on myself on a regular basis, because you want to make sure that you know what's happening under the hood and you're not, blind to it.
Right. What's your take on supplements? Because, especially when you get older, marketers are constantly marketing everything under the sun. I don't even take any, but like all my blood tests are fine. And even this sensitivity test was saying I was in a good range with my vitamins. So I don't feel the need for it, but I know some people do.
Sure. I think that it is very individual. I would argue that nowadays it's very hard to get every nutrient you need from the food that we have in the food supply. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're growing all your food yourself and, you're buying your meat from a rancher, it's really, really hard to get super nutrient dense vegetables and fruits these days.
Mm-hmm.
Our soils are just not the same. Yeah, I often recommend a magnesium supplement for a lot of my clients, often vitamin D, usually with vitamin K2. And the reason is, again, I go into detail in the book about all kinds of different supplements because I think it's important that people understand how all these things work together, right? So
Mm-hmm.
using the vitamin D and K2 example, if we just take calcium, right? Like when I got diagnosed with osteoporosis 20 years ago, they told me to
Mm-hmm.
take more calcium.
Right.
I was eating dairy, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was already exercising all the time and I had horrific bones. So obviously that wasn't the problem, right? And what I learned was your body doesn't necessarily need a bunch more calcium. Otherwise, it's just going to deposit it in your kidneys, in your joints, in your
Mm-hmm.
arteries. Right? We need vitamin K2, which there is not enough of in our diet these days, to tell the body where to deposit that calcium. Put it in my bones, put it in my teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we end up with problems. So I give people an opportunity to learn a little bit about different types of vitamins and then how they might consider, does this help me towards my goal? What sort of strategy should I use to bring these vitamins into my regimen? I
Mm-hmm.
recommend people start with just one thing at a time and start layering
Yeah.
in slowly. Because if you have a negative reaction, you need to know what it was that caused it.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. I took something that I had bought at Trader Joe's. It was like a women's supplement, and I just felt nauseous after, taking them. And I was like, okay, I don't want that
Yeah, and it
anymore.
might have been that it was something that you should have taken with food. It might have been that it wasn't a very high quality supplement if it's sitting on a shelf at Trader Joe's.
It just had a large percentages of various vitamins, and it was just a little bit too much. Sometimes you can OD on those things too.
Absolutely.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, okay, what's your fitness mantra and how do you implement it?
What's my fitness mantra? Ooh, that's a good question. I just like to be pushed as hard as possible. I like to learn where my limits are. I hired a trainer about a year ago for myself. It's so funny. I've been a trainer for so many years. It's so awesome having somebody else push me. And he also knows how to handle my injuries and work around issues that I'm dealing with. My mantra right now is just to get as strong and muscular as humanly possible.
That sounds good. I think we all want to stay as strong as possible.
It's like the opposite of trying to be skinny all those years, and I
Right.
feels good. Feels great.
Yeah, so I recommend everybody go get this book. You definitely have a wealth of knowledge about your topic, so I think that's wonderful.
Thank
And it's
you.
available on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Books a Million, my website,
Okay.
dfitlife.com. I just want to make sure that people understand this book is not just a bunch of information thrown at you. We talk about something and then you have a break and you have a chance to fill out questionnaires and take that information and apply it to your own life, figure out how you might use it. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you've put together your own cohesive wellness plan just for you.
That's awesome. I like that. Well, thanks so much. This was
Thank you for
great.
having me. Very much appreciate it.
All right.